Welcome back, my friend. Today, we are talking about the topic of intentional living and how it relates to our relationship with food and our bodies and how to create a more meaningful, more present life. So if you struggle with feeling like you're not really present in your life, you might be having dinner with your husband or on a play date with your daughter, or you're out with friends and you're going through the motion, you're there physically, but you're not really there emotionally and mentally. Your head is elsewhere. When it comes to dieting and disordered eating, perhaps you're thinking about how the food that you're eating right now is going to affect the scale tomorrow morning. You're micromanaging and thinking about the calories and the carbs in your food. You're constantly living in your head. Then this episode is for you. So I posted something on Instagram, or maybe I'm going to post it in a couple of days. I don't know when this is going to get released, but I was talking about how I want to be more mindful and more intentional when it comes to my presence and my time on social media, and how a lot of my followers have maybe noticed that I'm not posting as much on my stories, on my reels, on my timeline on the weekends. And that has actually been extremely intentional for me this summer, as I am coming out of a very busy period with work. We're like steamrolling through our Food Freedom Academy coaching program, our cohort for spring 2023. A lot of exciting things going on in the business. But that also led me to feel extremely tired and extremely disconnected. And as you may know, I'm from Montreal, and we don't get that many nice summer months here. And I want to be able to take as much advantage of it as possible. So going out with friends, seeing people, and not even necessarily having to be around people, but doing things that bring me joy, whether that's walking by the water or going hiking or just journaling outside in nature, just doing things to fill my cup. And because I've been wanting to be really intentional about that, another piece of it is being present in those activities, because you could go out for ice cream, you could go out for dinner, you could do the activities that are meant to be fun, but emotionally, you're so disconnected, you're not present, you're not really in the moment. And when you look back on them, you almost feel like you didn't take full advantage of those moments. And I definitely have experienced that before when I think back on the things I got to do in my younger years when I had my eating disorder, when I first went to Italy. And that's when, if you haven't listened to my story of my recovery with my disordered eating, my eating disorder, then go back to episode 1 where I take you through all of that. But I won't repeat the story, but as you know, I went to Italy, and that's where my relationship with food and with my body started to make some real progress. And that's when I started seeing that there was a flaw in my way of living and that I didn't want to continue to live that way. But because anyone who has ever gone on an intuitive eating self-love journey knows it's not an overnight process. And so I look back on my time in Italy, and as much as it was so amazing and I got to experience so many great memories, a lot of it, I remember feeling so disconnected. I remember not feeling the kind of exhilaration, the kind of joy, the kind of bewilderment that I thought that I would feel being in Italy, which was like my biggest dream. Like that was my dream country, my dream location. And I never felt like I fully got to experience it because there was still such a massive piece of my mind, piece of my mental bandwidth that was getting taken over by thoughts about food and my body. And I know that this is such a common issue amongst my clients and anyone who's struggled with years and years of dieting and obsessing over their body, obsessing over food. And so as I am really making that intention this year, this summer especially, and moving forward to be super intentional of of being present in my life. And now it's more related to work, right? So when I'm with my family, when I'm with my boyfriend, when I'm with my friends, or even when I'm with myself, because that is very essential and important time for me to recharge, I want to be present. And that means that maybe I'm posting less on social media. I'm not on my phone as much. And that's honestly very okay with me. I know that when I first started my business, I was all about putting myself out there and work, work, work. But all of the business and professional success won't matter if I look back on my life and I think, God, I wish that I had been more present. I wish I had made more of this moment. I wish that at my niece's birthday, I wasn't on my phone trying to update my followers and I was actually just being there with my family. And the reason why this relates to our relationship with food is because when we are so caught up in the size of our jeans, in the next diet that we're trying, in this endless pursuit of weight loss and of perfection when it comes to health, it is nearly impossible to truly be present and to feel like we are creating an intentional life. Because what happens is this switch goes off and we start living life on autopilot. And I know that this is something that a lot of my clients described as their experience before they joined Food Freedom Academy, is feeling like they're just going through the motion, right? They're waking up, they're taking care of their kids, they're weighing their food, they're forcing themselves through a workout, or they're hopping on that new diet trend and they're just doing the same thing over and over again without truly feeling like they're making progress, never truly feeling like they're fulfilled. And so what I want to talk about is, number one, how to know if you're living life on autopilot, if you're living life unintentionally. And the way that I describe it is if you're living life in the passenger seat, like someone else is running this show. And if we're going to go into more psychological terms, like there is your subconscious mind that tends to run the show. Your subconscious mind, which is your core beliefs, your core thoughts, your core, not even your core values, because that happens more on the conscious level, but it's those thoughts that we have about ourselves and about the world that drive our behaviors. And so let's say on a daily basis, your subconscious mind is driving your behaviors of you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not doing well enough, you're lazy, you're unmotivated, you're undisciplined. Those thoughts are going to affect your behaviors, because the way that all human behavior works, it gets activated, it gets motivated by an emotion. So whether you feel good, you feel bad, you feel joyful, you feel sad, you feel lonely, you feel bored, you feel depressed, our actions are motivated by a behavior, by an emotion. And so all of our emotion, they're just a vibration in our body, right? We often feel it in our stomach, right? Like that gut feeling, that feeling when we get bad news and we feel that emotion in our stomach, or when we feel tense, we feel it in our shoulders. But all it really is a vibration in your body that's triggered by a thought that you're having. All right. So if we feel guilty about eating a certain food, it's triggered by the thought of this is a bad food, therefore I shouldn't be eating it. That thought triggers that guilt and that shame. And we know that guilt and shame actually tends to trigger the behavior of overeating, of binge eating, right? If this is a bad food, but I've done it already, I've eaten the bad food, then I'm just going to eat it all. I'm just going to have it out of sight, right? Eat the whole bag, throw it out, and then start again tomorrow. So how to know if you're living an unintentional life, right? If you're living life on autopilot, if you're in the passenger seat of your life and you're not creating a life by your design, right? You're not being the architect of your life, but you're kind of letting life happen to you instead of happening for you. Number one is you feel stuck. You feel unfulfilled. You feel like you're not living by your purpose. So even if you reach your goals, so for example, weight loss, if your goal for the past 5, 10, 20 years has been, I want to lose weight, and you probably have. You've probably gained weight and lost weight and gained weight and lost weight. But even when you lose that weight, it still doesn't feel like the answer. It still doesn't feel like it's enough. You still don't feel that sense of peace, that sense of calm that you did, that you thought that you would get by hitting that goal weight or that size jeans or looking a certain way in the mirror. Or maybe you feel it temporarily. You feel that really short-term satisfaction, gratification. You feel good about it. And then you go back to feeling like you need more. You still feel stuck. You still feel unfulfilled. Another sign that you're living life on autopilot is that you're just going through the motions. You keep repeating the same patterns of behavior, dieting, restricting, cutting out carbs over and over again without much reflection on your actions like, is this working for me? Is this, if I keep doing the same thing over and over again, but I keep expecting different results, why? Right? There's no sense of critical thinking, of reflection, of questioning the behaviors. Why is it that I keep going out to eat with my friends, but I'm ordering the thing I don't want to? I'm jealous of everyone around me. I feel like I'm not getting full pleasure from food, right? There's not much reflection to our actions, to our patterns, and therefore we don't think about breaking our patterns because we don't question it. We just go through the motion. So another sign is that there's a lack of progress, there's a lack of growth. You feel stagnant in areas of your life that are the most important to you. For example, your health, your physical health, your mental health. You feel, again, like you just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. 1 step forward, 3 steps back. And you maybe feel hopeless. You feel deflated. You feel like no matter what you try, nothing's working. You're still not feeling better. You still are not feeling that kind of peace and freedom that you thought that you would feel. And another sign would be that you're neglecting your values. You consistently find yourself engaging in activities that contradict your beliefs. So for example, if you believe that all bodies are worthy of love and respect, if you look at your friends and families who might be in a larger body or who have gained weight, and you still love and respect them, it doesn't change your opinion of them. You don't see them as less worthy. If you have kids and you would never, ever want them to grow up thinking that food is the enemy, you would never, ever want them to grow up with the same beliefs that you have about yourself. You want them to grow up loving themselves and having this self-esteem and this confidence, regardless of what their eating habits are and what their bodies look like. But you don't show yourself that same kind of compassion, and your activities, your behaviors don't align with your core values and your core beliefs that you hold for everyone else, then that's a really clear sign that you're living an unintentional life. And that creates a huge sense of disconnect. I remember when I was struggling with my relationship with food, I would look back, I would look forward actually to the future version of myself and the kind of life I wanted her to live. Again, I've talked about this before, but I wanted her to be someone who inspired other people, someone who traveled, someone who made people feel good about themselves, someone who made people see their potential regardless of what their current state was, regardless of what they looked like, regardless of what their past was. I had all of these core values and beliefs about human worthiness and how everyone deserves respect and that all bodies are good bodies. And I wasn't showing myself the same kind of compassion and kindness. Like I was absolutely not aligning with my values. And most importantly, I was not aligning with the future version of myself that I wanted to step into. I wanted to be someone who would go out to eat and order the thing that I wanted and be present and enjoy food. I wanted to be someone who could travel and take all of these adventures and be spontaneous and not have to have my entire day revolve around what I was going to eat and how was I going to exercise. I wanted my life to be there to experience life, and then food and exercise to be there to complement it, to make it better, not to make it worse. Because at the time I was using exercise as a way to change my body instead of as a way to feel good. And it was all about calorie burned instead of how does it affect how I feel about myself, about my energy, and all of that fun stuff. And so if you are living and you feel like you are neglecting your values and there's a huge disconnect between what your core beliefs are with other people and then how you engage in certain activities, whether that's dieting or weight loss or things that just don't feel like they align with your values, then that does create a really big disconnect. And it's a very clear sign that you are not living an unintentional life. And so if you resonate with any of these signs, and there's others that we can talk about, but I want to make this podcast short and sweet. If you relate to any of these signs, it's probably a good time to reflect on your current lifestyle, your current choices, your current decisions, and make changes to create a more intentional life. Because we can always buy more things, we can always make more money, but we can never go back in time and change our experiences. And when I make any decision or when I am creating some kind of life, I always have the view of the future version of myself. And when she looks back, what kind of life does she want to look back on? What does she want to remember? And while living an intentional life is powerful, it's not always as joyful or easy as being comfortable in our comfort zone. Sometimes it can be challenging or even awkward, especially in the beginning. As New York art therapist Jackie Tassio notes, you might realize that the values and the traditions you learned from your family, your culture, your society, diet culture, fat phobic culture, it no longer resonates with you. And this can be tough to navigate. And as you get closer to the core of what actually matters to you, you could lean away from activities and relationships that numbed you or distracted you towards a new, healthier pattern. Dieting, we all know the side effects of it and we know the negative side of it, but every behavior is done with an intention. Every behavior has a purpose. And a lot of the times we diet because it's the thing that we're focusing on. It's the only goal that we have in life. It's a way of distracting ourselves, of numbing ourselves from maybe core issues like a lack of social connection that we have in our lives, or like emotional needs that we're not getting met. And that does create discomfort, because once we take that away and we start living an intentional life at the beginning, it absolutely does feel uncomfortable. But uncomfortable and stepping out of that comfort zone, that's where real change happens. So there are many ways to live and be intentional, like intentionally living itself. The key is to find what resonates the most with you. So I'm going to give you a couple of ideas, some things to journal on or some things to reflect on. So this could be a good time to take out a pen, a piece of paper, your reminders or notes app on your phone to write some things down. So number one is to tune out the noise, right? So we are living in a world where there's so much distraction. We go on social media and we see other people's lives and we think, oh, that life looks amazing. I should do the same. We're constantly comparing ourselves to other people. We are living on someone else's timeline. If someone else did something by the age of 40, then we're not even close. And then we start comparing and we start feeling bad about ourselves when we don't realize that everyone has a different timeline. Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different future. And so tuning out the noise and starting to get clear on what your own values, what your own intentions, what your own desires are. Do you want to travel or not? Do you want to have kids or not? Do you want to get married or not? Do you want to live your entire life pursuing weight loss and never feeling satisfied or content with your body or not? Try not to let social media, other people, anything else dictate your innermost desires, because when you actually pause and you identify the biggest distractions in your life, you can start letting go of them altogether, and you can start tuning into what your inner self and what your gut truly wants. Another thing to, another step, another tip to start living a more intentional life, and this is huge, and we do this with my clients, is to identify your values. Naming your values, understanding what they are, is the foundation of living an intentional life, right? Because if you don't know what your values are, if you don't know what drives your behaviors, and you create behaviors based on values that aren't yours, that's what creates that disconnect. That's what creates that sense of stuckness, of unfulfillment, of feeling like you're lacking purpose. And so here are a few questions that you could answer to help you get some clarity on what is vital to you. So number one is from the time you wake up in the morning to nighttime, what does an ideal day look like for you? Does it look like I want to step on the scale every morning and let that number dictate how I feel about myself and how I eat for the rest of the day? I want to force myself through a workout that I hate because I'm punishing myself into a smaller body. Do I want to go out for dinner and order the thing that I want and have a conversation with my friends and family and be present and laugh and be part of the conversation instead of ordering the salad, obsessing over the bread roll on the table, feeling so terrified that I'm going to lose control, thinking about the scale the next morning? So I want you to get super, super clear. And I really recommend that you do this. You sit down with it, you take out your journal, and you write this down. From the moment I wake up, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whenever you wake up, to the moment I go to bed, what does my ideal day look like? And then I want you to look at some of the activities that you might be doing, some of the behaviors that you might be engaging in on a daily basis. Weighing yourself, tracking your food, trying to think of some of the other behaviors I used to do. Oh, feeling like I need to walk out off every single meal, whatever behaviors you're doing right now, and kind of pinpoint them, highlight them to see, do they align with the future version of what I want to create? This is a really powerful idea, and I can do an entire other episode on this, is how to start living and making decisions from that future you. This is an idea that I've introduced to the clients in Food Freedom Academy, and it has been so incredibly powerful. For example, one of my clients found herself in a situation where she had not eaten enough during the day and was in a situation where she found herself going back to some of her old patterns of eating quickly and that F it, Last Supper mentality. And she found herself getting pulled back into that behavior. And what she said is, the huge win is that I stopped for a few moments, still feeling rather panicky, and I tried to figure out what to do. I could feel the binge momentum building, like a huge boulder starting to roll downhill, unstoppable and crushing everything in its path. I thought about my future self and what she would do in that situation. She wouldn't be panicky. She wouldn't have an F it, Last Supper mentality, because she wouldn't believe she was worthless because she overate and was uncomfortable for one meal or one day. She would figure out some way to care for herself and ease the discomfort, not add to it. She also wouldn't be thinking about how much the scale would be up in the morning or how to restrict to make up for it, because it's just another day and another piece of info for maybe how to do things differently at lunch to feel better. That mind shift totally worked. The crazy urge to binge melted away the more I channeled the future me. In my decades-long history of binging, I've never been able to stop the train once it's left the station, so this feels huge. A game changer? Maybe. So I love this win, and in the Food Freedom Academy, we have all these kinds of wins in our private Facebook group, but making those decisions from your future self. And the only way to know is to know what that future version of yourself is. Now that you've gone clear on that, why are these things so important? Why is it so important for me to be present with my family? Why is it so important for me to accept my body? And you don't have to love it. And that's a whole different topic, body neutrality and not needing to fall for the toxic body positivity movement, but really just how do I accept my body? Why is it so important to me to be connected to my values, to have my actions align with the words that come out of my mouth or the things that I say are important to me? Another question to reflect upon is, what are the activities that bring you fulfillment, that bring you meaning, that bring you contentment, that make you feel like you have purpose? Whether that means taking care of your family, going for a walk, helping others, being in the presence of loved ones, drawing, puzzling, journaling, watching TV, cooking. What are the things that truly bring you joy? Traveling, eating to a restaurant, enjoying food. What are the things that truly bring you meaning and contentment? And how much time are you making? How much intentional time are you making? And this doesn't mean taking a 3-hour bubble bath. It could mean taking 10 minutes a week. That's you time. That is dedicated to you. I talked at the beginning of this episode about how necessary it is for me to have my dedicated me time. Because if I don't feel my cup, I'm showing up in the world with an empty cup, and I'm not treating the people around me the way that I want them to be treated, the way that I want to show up in the world. So what are some of those activities, and do you make an intentional effort to follow through on those activities? And then how would the 80-year-old version of myself want to remember this time in my life? So whether your kids are growing up, they're under 10 years old, they're young, they're in their like massive growth phase, and you're seeing them start walking and talking, and you're seeing them start creating a relationship with food, and you're in this phase of your life, how do you want to remember this time? Do you want to remember that time by how many times you tried and stopped Weight Watchers? Or how much time you spent Googling recipes and weight loss hacks, or stepping on the scale and berating your body? How do you want to remember this time in your life? And once you get clear on that, you're going to be able to get clear on, are my current habits, patterns, behaviors aligned with how I want to remember this time? This is the biggest piece of this all, is just to pause in your life, to take a break from the noise, from the constant distractions, and just pause and get silent with yourself and start questioning, is this how I want to continue living my life? To break that pattern and to break that momentum, because once we're in autopilot, there is that momentum that builds. And it is very difficult because most people don't stop to question these things. And I have a lot of worksheets in the Food Freedom Academy for my clients. And oh my goodness, once they go through some of their worksheets, there can be a really like a strong emotion that comes out of that. There could be sadness, there could be grief of, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I have wasted so much of my time, of my energy, of my resources, of my experiences with people on this endless pursuit of dieting and weight loss, thinking that it would make me feel a certain way, that it would bring me joy, without actually reflecting on what my values are and what it would actually take me to get the joy. Because I used to think that being in a smaller body would make me finally feel successful, finally feel at peace, finally be happy. And I never could have imagined that actually it was gaining weight and coming into my body and being accepting of whatever my body does that brought me that joy, that contentment, that peace that I was looking for. I would have never imagined that. And that's because body image lives in your head. It doesn't live in your jean size, the number on the scale, the reflection in the mirror. The way that you relate to your body, to food, to your own life is based on the way that you think about those things, not the actual thing itself. So those are some of my tips, some of my reflections that I had as I was creating this Instagram post, and how I wanted to create an intention around my summer and quite honestly the rest of my life. And so I hope that this was helpful. I would love to know your thoughts on intentional living. So do not hesitate to send me a DM on Instagram or to send me an email. And I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.